guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is McKenna if you're new here, and today I'm going to go over how I make my playlists for Cycle Bar and Orange Theory, which is also going to apply to all other fitness playlists that you may make in the future. So you might find some helpful tips in this video if you're a fitness instructor trying to create playlists that a wide range of people will like, from older people to younger people, and just some tips and tricks to get people engaged with your ride or with your class and playlist. So if you are looking to make better playlists or like level up your playlists, make sure you stay tuned for this video. If you want to follow me on Spotify, you guys can find me at McKenna Holly on Spotify. I post all of my playlists on there. I think I have over like 700 playlists, but like 550 of those are public, and most of them are Cycle Bar and Orange Theory playlists. So if you just scroll down, you can find tons and tons and tons of music to create and curate your own. Now, in this video, I'm not going to go over the format of Cycle Bar because that is under an NDA, which I agreed to not talk about, and I'm not allowed to give away the format, but I am going to tell you guys how you can create an engaging playlist for riders to come and listen to, or same thing applies to like Orange Theory. I use a lot of these same tips for when I'm making my Orange Theory playlist, so like F45, or I don't know how if Barry's Boot Camp has their instructors make their playlist, but if they do, personal trainers, all of these can be applied, or any rhythm-based class as well, like climbing, cycling, bar, all of that. First tip I have is to prep. Make sure you're prepping ahead of class and you're not just throwing together a playlist on your way there. For me, sometimes it'll take an hour to make a playlist. If I'm making a theme ride, sometimes it'll take a couple hours. So you want to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to create those playlists. Sometimes I'll make a playlist the day before and then listen to it when I go to bed, or listen to it when I'm driving somewhere, so that I really know that playlist very well. I know what song is coming next. I know when the beat is going to drop. I know how many choruses it has. So this kind of comes with time as well. If you're kind of a new cycling instructor, you may have to practice a little bit at that, at counting in the beat drops, which is okay. That's why you want to prep ahead of time so you can plan and be aware of all of that. Another tip is you want to use what's authentic to you. So you don't want to play a bunch of stuff that you don't really like. You want to play music that you like, something that's catchy, something that you would want to play all the time and listen to, but at the same time, a little bit contradictory to what I just said, you also want to make sure that you're playing to your audience as well, and I'll go into that a little bit later on, but make sure you're playing stuff that you genuinely like. So if you're teaching a spin class or you're teaching a bar class or something like that, you want to make sure you follow the sequence. And like I said, I can't give away our sequence, and I can't give away, like I taught for bar 3 for a while, I can't give away their sequence, but when you're using a specific sequence like climbing, I taught at Transform Colorado, downtown Denver for a little bit, and they all have a sequence that you need to follow. So an RPM sequence or BPM, if you're used to music, you're used to hearing that, but like 130 beats per minute is like great for fast pushes. I usually will play 125, 130 RPM song at the very end of a playlist to send people home on a high note. And then I'll usually play like a 75 BPM for like a connect feely song. So just follow the sequence. They usually have a rhyme and a reason to them, so make sure you're following the sequence that you have handed to you. You want to make sure that you're playing a diverse playlist. So when I mentioned earlier that you want to play music that you genuinely like, you also want to make sure that you're playing music that your audience likes. So you're probably going to have people in your class that are 60, you're probably going to have people in your class that are 18, right? So you're going to have a wide range, female, male, all the things. You're going to have people who like rock, you're going to have people who like classic, just everything that you can think of under the sun. People like it country, right? There's so many different types of music. So you want to make sure in your playlist that you incorporate like one rock song, one old song. And you keep in mind, like a throwback song is going to be different for somebody like me, 28. A throwback song to me is like early 2000s, right? People who are older than me, you want to throw it way back, like AC/DC or something way back. And you can also find a lot of really cool remixes to some older songs as well, or some cool mashups that you can play. So have fun with it. For me, it took a long time to be able to play some of those really oldie classic songs that everybody knows, because I just wasn't as familiar with it. But the more and more I play them in my class, the more and more I was like, okay, these are so much fun to ride to, and riders love taking my class because I play these at least once in a playlist. So people know that they're coming to my class, they know that I'm going to be playing something like a throwback. I also play a lot of 2000s, so riders, when they come to my class, they know that I play a lot of 2000s. But keep in mind, you want to hit every genre if you can. You want to hit a wide variety of genres so that you can be inclusive, and you play one song that a rider loves during class and they are going to be hooked on you. So keep that in mind, diverse playlist. So if you are making your own format, right? You're making your own format, you don't have a format given to you, and you're teaching a spin class. You want to make sure that you have a variety of RPM. So it's a little bit easier when you have the format given to you, because you're going to have a flat road, a hill climb, you're going to have a crack jog, a slower jog, things like that. So stick to that sequence. But if you're able to make your own, you want to make sure that you incorporate a variety of BPMs. A heavy hill, a lighter hill, followed by a crack jog, or whatever it may be. You want to make sure that you're creating a variety of movements and people aren't just constantly out of the saddle riding to 90 RPM the whole ride, because that's just going to keep their heart rate at a steady level rather than slowing it down, adding gear, they're building muscle, and then putting them in the saddle, running them at 125, if that makes sense. If you teach spin or rhythm classes, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't, this doesn't necessarily apply to you, but if you're taking this to Orange Theory on an endurance day, people are doing a lot of running. So like an all out, you're going to want to play something that is high energy. So like 120, 130 RPM for like that all out pace, for something that they're going to be having a lot of pushes in. You want like a good beat that's going to carry them through. So keep that in mind when you're making playlists as like a personal trainer or a place like Orange Theory. For me, I try to stay clear of top 40 songs. Like I'll play like one, maybe, usually just like one in a class, maybe two if it's like working. But the songs that are top 40 are usually being played on the radio repeat after repeat, and people are kind of sick of them at this point. So you want to make sure you're giving people like that diverse ride again. So if you play a top 40, make sure you throw a throwback in there, a rock, kind of the stuff I've been talking about. I don't want to like reiterate it too much. If you see me looking down at my phone, it's because I have a ton of notes on here that I want to go over and I don't want to forget anything. So forgive me for that. Yeah, try to stay clear of the top 40, one, maybe two songs. I use a lot of remixes, but you want to be careful with remixes because they're all usually EDM. So you don't want a whole class of EDM where the energy is up here the whole entire time. You want to make sure that your playlist is kind of like flowing through this process that takes people on a high and then brings them back down, grounds them a little bit, takes them on a high, grounds them, and then sends them on that high at the end of class. So just keeping that in mind, having some kind of flow, high energy, ground, send them out on a high. Keep in mind when you are making a playlist, especially on Spotify. So I use Spotify, like I said. You guys can find me at McKenna Holly again. I post playlists there almost every day, sometimes a couple times a day. You can find tons of music there. But if you're using Spotify, you want to keep in mind that if your playlist is, or your class is 45 minutes or 60 minutes, right? Say it's 45 minutes. Keep in mind that that playlist, when you have crossfade, which is something that I highly recommend you put in your playlist, is turn up the crossfade on Spotify. So I have like an 8-minute crossfade, or not 8-minute, I have an 8-second crossfade on my Spotify. So one song just blends right into the other song, which makes everything flow smoothly and seem like it just comes together seamlessly. If you have that crossfade, that 8-second crossfade, and say you have 12 songs or 13 songs, that's 8 seconds off of each song. And pretty soon you're gonna be a minute, 2 minutes short, right? So if you have a 45-minute playlist, you wanna make sure your playlist is like 47, 48 minutes. I always have it be a little bit longer so that that crossfade makes it end at the right time, if that makes sense. You also want to make sure when you're making a playlist that it is doable. I love SoulCycle, and I'm not bashing on them because I absolutely love it. I love the idea of everything not being completely doable, just because it really pushes me and it gets me to my absolute max. But in a lot of SoulCycle classes, they will run people out of the saddle at 130 RPM. And if you've ever done that on the going home songs, it is very unsustainable for a lot of people. And if you look around the room, you'll see a lot of people can't do it. So you want to make sure that your playlists, when you pick music, it is something that a majority of the room can do. So for me, running out of the saddle at 100 RPM, not a lot of people can do that. I can do that, but I'm also an instructor. I do this every day. Just keep in mind that not everybody can do what you're doing, and you don't want to come off show-offy, if that makes sense. So make sure that you're picking RPMs and you're picking to do choreo, and the things that you're choosing to do is going to be doable for a majority. At Cycle Bar, we say to read the room, right? If you look around, you can see who can do it and who can't. And look past the front row, because usually a lot of people in the front row can do everything that you're doing. So make sure you're looking at the second, third, maybe fourth row if you have a fourth row, and seeing if they can keep up. Okay, so now I want to go over tools that I use for making my playlist. There's a lot of cool tools that I have in my back pocket. Like I said, I use Spotify, so you already know that, but there's a lot of things you can do within Spotify to get in more music, because Spotify doesn't have everything, unfortunately. They have some things and some tricks that you can use. So the first thing I want to mention is an app called BPM. So this app called BPM is basically an app. I'm going to pull it up right here. So it's literally called BPM, and you basically listen to music and you can tap, tap, tap on the downbeat, and it's going to tell you how fast that song is. So when you hear me talking about RPM or BPM, that is what I'm talking about. It's the beats per minute, or I call it RPM just because that's what we call it at Cycle Bar, but basically it's beats per minute, right? BPM. Faster obviously is going to be a lot higher. If you're clicking a lot faster, you have a slower beat, it's going to be a lot slower, right? So I use that all the time, especially when I'm making my playlist and I'm following the sequence. I will use that app, tap to a song, and it will tell me where it needs to go within my sequence, right? I've been doing this for so long. I've been doing this for like 2.5, almost 3 years. Now I can hear a song and take a good guess at where it is BPM wise. But if I'm ever like in doubt or questioning, I pull out that app. Another tool that I use is called Sort My Music. You can find it online. You literally just type in Sort My Music, connect it to your Spotify. I think there's a little button on there that says connect to Spotify. It'll connect it to whatever Spotify you are logged into on your computer, and you can go to the playlist that you're looking at, and it will tell you all of the details to your playlist. You can see everything there. I usually pay attention just to the BPM or the RPM that is listed there, but you can see that there's tons of other stuff that you can pay attention to and use for your playlists on there. Keep in mind, I'm going to show you guys how to do local files. Local files do not show up on Sort My Music, but you can pull local files, and what I mean by local files are songs that you have on your computer that are not on Spotify, and I'll go into that more in depth in just a minute. Another app that I love using is called Shazam. There's also another one called Soundhound, I think. Soundhound. Anyways, you basically open up the app and you hit the center button, and it is going to start pulling up whatever song is playing in the background. It's going to listen, and if it can find it, it's going to tell you the name of it. So I've used this in the past. Obviously, I'm not playing a song right now because I don't want to get in trouble by YouTube and all of that copyright stuff. You can see all the Shazam. So I use this all the time, especially when I'm taking other instructors' classes. You've probably heard of this. You hit play, it's going to keep track of everything you've Shazammed in the past, and then later when I'm making a playlist, I'll just pull this up and be like, oh yeah, I wanted to play, I don't know why I Shazammed Mercy, because I know Mercy by Kanye West, but that one, like, you know, I'll go in and throw that in a playlist. Oh yeah, I wanted to add this to my next playlist. So Shazam, and then also Soundhound. If one of them doesn't work, I'll usually just pop into the next one and try it again. Shazam has always been pretty good. So another tool that I use is YouTube and SoundCloud. So you probably have heard of both. Obviously you're on YouTube, so you've heard of YouTube, but sometimes I'll find really cool remixes that are on YouTube and they're not on Spotify. Seriously, SoundCloud is like absolutely amazing for finding new music. So I hop on SoundCloud, I'll find some awesome remixes, especially for my Mashup Mondays. I'll find a ton of mashups on there, download them onto my computer, and that's why when you're looking at my playlist, you will see songs that are blacked out and you can't play. That's because they've been pulled off my computer and I can only play them on my devices. So I'm gonna walk you guys through the process of basically how I do it. I may get in trouble for this because it's not super ethical, but basically I will go into SoundCloud, I will find a song that I love, right? I will copy the link to that song and I will open up in another web browser. I'll open up Google and I'll type in SoundCloud to MP3 player. You can also do this with YouTube. You would just type in YouTube to MP3 player or downloader, converter, whatever. And you copy the link on YouTube or on SoundCloud and you'll paste it in that converter and hit download. Usually a couple clicks, you'll have some pop-ups. I just ignore those, and then it'll download to my computer into my downloads folder. And from there, you should automatically be able to see it in your local files. So I'll go into Spotify and I will go up to My Music, click on My Music, it'll pull up and you'll hit local files at the top, and you can see all of the music that is in your downloads folder. For me, I have it set up a little bit differently, but you probably won't need to do that. But I have it set up to connect to a completely different folder on my computer. If you're interested in learning to do that, you can just YouTube it or Google it or whatever. But I have a folder on my desktop that says local files, and then I have Spotify connect to that folder instead of my downloads. But for the most part, generally, Spotify is connected to your downloads folder, and you shouldn't really need to rearrange it from there. I just have hundreds and hundreds of local files, so I wanted them out of my downloads folder so I could keep that kind of clean. Now I'm going to go over where I find my music. So there's a lot of possibilities. Obviously, there's way more than what I'm going to talk about, but in general, this is where I find a lot of my music. So I follow a ton of instructors from Cycle Bar, from Soul Cycle, from Bar, past Bar instructor friends, other fitness studios I follow on Spotify. So if you go to my Spotify profile, as if I haven't said this enough, McKenna Holly, and you go to who I follow, you can see tons of really amazing instructors to follow. And I will just go through their playlists and I'll listen to music. I usually set aside a couple hours each week to go through playlists, search Spotify, search SoundCloud, and find as much new music as I can, pull it all into a folder. And if you see like September sort on my Spotify, that is kind of where I dump a lot of my new music. And then when I'm making playlists, I'll go through there and pull some of it out, make the playlist with it, and then usually remove it from that folder so that I know I don't use it again. But that's just how I do things. I usually set aside that time. You don't necessarily have to, but it's helped me out tremendously making playlists so that I'm kind of more organized. Another amazing place to find new music on Spotify is actually the Release Radar and New Music Friday. So they're playlists that Spotify automatically has up. You can go to the Discover page and you can see the playlist New Music Friday and Release Radar, which are both amazing playlists to pull through. I'll usually on Friday morning, I'll just listen to these playlists while I'm cooking, cleaning, whatever. And any new music that I like, I'll just pull it into that sorts folder again that I was telling you about. So we've already touched on SoundCloud. SoundCloud is where a majority of my local files come from. And honestly, it's a majority of where my instructor friends' local files come from as well. SoundCloud is an amazing resource. If you're ever, side note, if you're ever on like TikTok and you hear an awesome song, so you're gonna go to settings on your phone, you're gonna go down to Control Center, click on Control Center, and then you're gonna see included controls. And on mine, you can see Shazam is already there, music recognition. I'm gonna show you guys how to add it. So I'm just gonna take it away. And if you scroll all the way down and you see right here, that little green plus button, I'm gonna add it back. So you're just gonna hit that button. It's gonna bring it back up to the included controls. And now when I swipe down from the corner of my screen, you can see now Shazam is in the lower bottom corner. If I hit Shazam, whatever song is playing on my phone is now going to be scoped out by Shazam, and it's going to pop up at the top with a notification to what song it is. And yeah, makes it really easy to find new music, especially when you're hearing it and you just cannot figure out what song it is. That's how I Shazam a lot of that. So yeah, that takes me basically into my next topic. I find a lot of my music on TikTok, actually. There's a ton of really amazing artists on there who create mashups, remixes, whatever. And I will go to their profile, and usually those people have SoundCloud. So they'll upload all their music to SoundCloud. I click on their link to their SoundCloud, or I'll just search their name in SoundCloud. I kind of have to do a little bit of digging, detective work, you know what I mean? And I will find some amazing remixes just by finding some incredible artists on TikTok. And then also, if there's music playing and maybe it's not the artist and you can't figure out who, I just use Shazam and it pulls up what I'm looking for. Another way I find music, we've already touched on YouTube, SoundCloud, but another way is I will pull up old playlists that I've made in the past, and I will copy, paste those into a new playlist, and then I will remake them and use some of the old songs that I'm like loving still. But I will say I barely ever reuse a playlist. Orange Theory playlist I'll reuse, but Cycle Bar, I've never reused a playlist. I always change things in and out. I'll usually change like 60 to 80% of the music if I'm reusing a playlist. So especially when you're especially when you're in like a spin class, people don't want to hear the same music over and over and over again. In Orange Theory, I think it's a little bit more doable, but in something that is so heavily rhythm driven, people don't want to hear the same playlist all the time. And even like months apart, they don't want to hear the same music. So I will usually not reuse music for several weeks. Usually my rule of thumb is a month. I break that rule a lot, but I just make sure if I'm teaching a 7 a.m. class, I reuse that music in a 5:15 p.m. class. And I try not to reuse it again in a 7 a.m. class for a while, if that makes sense. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're teaching spin. Another thing I want to touch on is more with Spotify. So on Spotify, I organize all my playlists and I try to keep them as organized as possible. So on the side of my Spotify, you can see that I have tons of folders, like it's out of control. But I usually organize my playlists at the top. I have playlists that I'm listening to frequently, like my favorite spin songs, my favorite go-to like road trip songs, whatever. I have a ton of playlists up top. There's like a Colby Calais playlist, there's a John Mayer playlist that I have, tons of stuff like that. But if you scroll down, I have playlists organized by year. So there's a 2021 playlist, 2020 playlist, and then so on, 19, 18. And when I click that folder, it will open up even more folders. So those folders inside are usually the month. So I will organize my folders then by month, May, June, July, whatever, and so on. And then if you click on a month, it will organize my playlists into the name of the actual playlist. So then you can see from here, when I click on, this playlist right here, DTC, I can see what date I taught it on, what time I taught it on, and if there's anything like special to the playlist, I will usually write it after that so I can remember. I also throw my Orange Theory playlists in here, and I will usually favorite the ones that I love so that I can use them again later on or just remake them a little bit better. But yeah, that's how I organize my music on Spotify. You guys also saw that I organize my playlist by month sort. So at the very top of each month, I have, May sort, June sort, July sort, whatever. I already told you, but just to touch up on it again, I kind of dump music in there that I want to be using this month, and I will pull when I'm making playlists from this specific playlist. When I'm making a playlist, I like to pick a theme that I'm trying to keep consistent through my ride. I feel like this is something I'm still working on to this day. It's not something that comes easy for me, but a theme like, you want it to be a really hard class, nitty gritty, whatever. Pick music that matches that theme. You want it to be a like fun, happy class, pick some hip hop, dancing, party on a bike, right? If you're wanting to be a really like feely, touchy, connecty song, pick music that kind of vibes with that theme. And also keep in mind when you have some kind of message you want to say later on in the ride, reflection song, whatever you may call it, whatever message you're going to share then, you want that theme to kind of roll throughout the class so that when you give that message, it like resonates with people and they've already felt that throughout the whole ride. They'll just feel it even deeper when you bring it up. Here are just some theme ideas I wrote down. So messages for your class could be like struggle, right? Hard. You pick hard music, it's a struggle, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? Letting go. So you're carrying a lot of weight with you, but you're trying to get people to just like let that go, let that outside world go, and just enjoy the moment that you're having in the class. Working hard, like that can be a theme too. Just you want people to show up, work hard, leave feeling successful and fulfilled. And then pushing through. So just another theme idea. The last thing I want to touch on is how I prep and plan my theme rides. So theme rides are extremely hard. They're hard classes to prep for. I just taught an evolution of Justin Bieber, a Billy versus Ellie ride. The themes can go on forever. I'm sure you see instructors posting their themes, and if you scroll through my playlist far enough back, you'll see a bunch of themes and stuff like that. But I find a lot of music on SoundCloud for my themes because it's very hard to fit all of the music and BPMs inside of the playlist that I'm trying to create, right? So like it's like Drake, right? A lot of Drake songs are going to be around that like 80, 90, maybe 100 RPM. You can't make a whole playlist out of 80 or 90 RPM, right? So I'll get on SoundCloud and I'll find some really cool remixes that go up to like 130. I'll find some really cool remixes that are slow, gritty, good to climb with, stuff like that. So you really have to dig, you really have to prep. I usually prep way ahead of time so that I can make tweaks when it gets closer to my theme ride. And I won't submit for a theme ride unless I've already made a playlist for it or kind of have a playlist made for it so that I know I can make it happen. Another great way that I've been finding lately is there's so many cycle bar instructors out there. So I will literally type in CB in my Spotify, CB Ellie ride, right? CB, you don't even have to do that. You don't even have to write cycle bar, right? CB for cycle bar. You could literally just type in Drake ride, Wake and Drake, right? So many instructors do Wake and Drake rides, and it's going to pull up a ton of playlists from other instructors. Now, rule of thumb, unless you're kind of like a dirty playlister, you never copy and paste somebody else's playlist. That's just kind of like, as a creative, like a no-no, you know? But pull from that person's playlist, steal like an artist, and you don't actually like take the artist's work, right? Not saying that us instructors are artists or anything, but like just take bits and pieces from a bunch of playlists and create your own, and it's gonna be your own playlist, but never copy and paste somebody else's playlist or use it for your ride. That's just kind of a dirty thing to do. Last thing I want to touch on for theme rides. So theme rides, I always have a pre-class playlist. So I have one broad pre-class playlist that I play ahead of all my classes. It's just like fun, sets the vibe for the type of instructor that I am. But then when I'm making a theme ride, I will have like a pre-Wake and Drake playlist or a pre-Ellie playlist, a pre-Justin Bieber playlist that I play before that ride. So again, it sets the vibe, it sets the stage for that playlist or that class, if that makes sense. So yeah, anyways, there is all my tips for creating an engaging playlist and all of that stuff. For me, music is not mine. The music that I use is the artist's music, so therefore I feel like I shouldn't keep it secret. It's for the world, like sharing it. So I don't private my playlists, at least at this time I don't. But I know a lot of instructors do, so yeah. But for me, you can find all of the playlists I've ever used on my Spotify. I have deleted playlists in the past and I regret it because I wish I could go back and listen to those. But as of the last 2.5 years, I haven't deleted playlists. So they're all on my Spotify. You can find them. You can find me at McKenna Holly again. You can find me on Instagram at Happily_Kenna. You can find me on TikTok at Happily_Kenna. And all of those places. So anyways, if you've made it this far, thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell button. It really, really helps me out. I appreciate it so much, and I will see you next time.
She's
Bye.
a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her. She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up.